This episode is sponsored by Bigger City. Thank you so much for supporting us and helping our show to grow.
Welcome to episode 150 of the Big Fat Gay Podcast, baby.
Huzzah! 150.
We did it.
More than happy anniversary, everybody.
Yeah, we're here. I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub, and I'm a original Pokemon lineup boy today because we're celebrating 150 episodes.
Wasn't the original lineup still 151? Or am I
Well,
crazy?
initially they released it as 150 because Mew was a secret. So,
Oh, well, in that case, my name is Michael Willer. I'm a chubby chaser, and I'm the secret Mew of this episode. I'm the 151st. I'm going to do a secret episode tomorrow that nobody will know about.
you have to move the pickup truck to find Michael.
Hey, everybody, my name's Don. I'm a big
deep
chubby
cut.
guy living here in sunny Hollywood. And today I brought my Digimon cards, and no one else looks excited.
Boo.
Hi, my name is Dan Oliverio, author, public speaker, and chubby chaser, and I have the distinct honor of understanding none of the intro. Digimon, Pokemon, Suleiman. I have no idea.
Pickup truck.
Yeah. No idea.
I don't know. Thank you to all of our new listeners, our old listeners, our day one listeners.
Yeah.
People
Man.
listening backwards, people listening forwards.
How many people? So we keep getting messages from people who are like, "Oh my God, we just found your show. It's great. We're starting from episode 1." It's like, what?
Are you crazy?
Yeah, like you have a life.
That is as the doctor recommends it, Michael. You have to start at the beginning of treatment.
Take 2 episodes before bed and send us some
God.
fan mail in the morning.
So many episodes.
I think it's a lot more heartening than listening backwards. So like, what?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it probably makes more sense. It's just like, well, so somebody was saying that they were listening, like got to the point right at the start of COVID quarantine, where we were like, oh, it could be a week or 2 before we're back in person. Nope. Wrong. I still remember that first COVID episode. It was so, I feel like we could talk about this now. It was so bad, the recording of it was so bad that it got cut from a typical episode recording time of probably around an hour down to like 28 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that short.
It's our shortest episode, shortest quote unquote full episode. Anyway, so thank you to the people who have been listening to the show all this time, and also thank you to Big Fig for being a super cool affiliate of the show. We have, in case you don't know, they make mattresses that are by fat people for. Actually, I don't know if they're by fat people. Probably.
I'm not so sure of that,
some
but they're
fat people.
definitely for very heavy
Definitely
people.
for fat people. Yes.
Yeah.
And they're partners.
Let me add a little quick disclaimer here that they'll be very happy for. While they are excellent for big people, there is nothing wrong with them for normie sized or small sized or petite.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
a fantastic bed.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got an affiliate link on our website. We fully believe in the product. Don bought one of their mattresses well before we ever had this deal with them. So if you're considering buying a mattress and you want it to be fat friendly, go buy a Big Fig mattress and use our affiliate link. It helps the show out. We use it to pay the editor that we have caged in the closet. It's not me anymore.
No, it's a different prisoner.
We've passed that privilege on. And also to...
We call them interns here.
Yeah, exactly. Also to Bigger City, of course, you heard my little formulaic NPR style intro for the show that we've been doing, but Bigger City has been supporting our show for a couple months now, helping us pay again for editors and the cost of recording online like we're doing right now, which is all fantastic. We really appreciate it. Obviously, if you don't know Bigger City, it's for chub chaser, bear, and everything in between, dating, online, and app-based. And it's a good place for community as well, which I think they're trying to double down on coming up.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
And Patreon, I
Yeah.
guess, quick, Patreon, also Patreon.
The individuals out there who just give us money
Our
because they're good
Patreon
people.
people know we love them, and they know we're going to do a little something special
Yeah.
for them on
And-
Patreon to mark the event.
And Patreon listeners, you're our favorite. Don't tell the other listeners.
Did you just do a Paula Poundstone quote? I love you.
All right, let's get into the episode before we get too far down that rabbit hole. Wait, where's my? Oh no, my music got rearranged. Hold on, stand by. Pop culture. There we go. Ha.
Wow, wow. We're dancing. You're dancing. Everyone's dancing. A fun fact, I got some feedback from a listener who heard me ask and fear if people did not like the music, and the listener said they liked it. So there you
Yay.
go.
Yay!
And
Vindicated.
that they dance along with us.
Oh,
Yay.
well, good, because we actually do. At
do
some
dance.
point, I suspect we will do some sort of video episode. I feel like that's the thing that podcasts are supposed to do, and then you'll see us dancing. But today is not that day.
When we finally do our big fat gay podcast convention, I want us to film a big intro for our episode with full dance choreography and everything.
That's right. And a flash mob in the host hotel lobby.
Of course, that's why we have to wait for our convention.
I feel
Michael. That just got Michael.
I feel like, yeah, well, it's just imagining like a fat people flash mob is like, that's just an event. Like, that's like all of the normies who show up to that host hotel who don't know what's happening. And it's just like hundreds and hundreds of super fat people wandering around. Like,
that is the flash mob.
that's already, you're
The
already
best part
there.
for me is the choreography in my head is the whole Thriller video, Michael Jackson.
Oh my
thing,
God,
and,
yes.
I want to do this now. So what do we have in pop culture this week?
Well, we're going to start off by bumming everyone out. Let's take this energy down a little bit. Dan actually sent this to me, a piece from The Guardian with the body double for Gwyneth Paltrow in Shallow Hal.
Yeah, if you cast your mind back to the movie Shallow Hal with Gwyneth Paltrow and Jack Black, the premise was that Tony Robbins hypnotizes the scumbag Jack Black character into seeing the inner beauty, which allows him to appreciate this fat woman's inner beauty, seeing her as the slim and fit Gwyneth Paltrow.
Right.
Yeah.
But fat jokes abound, don't worry.
Yeah.
And so this was the body double because they did it, the way they filmed it was they put Gwyneth Paltrow sometimes in a fat suit, and then for the longer shots, they would actually use a fat person.
Yes, whose name is Ivy Snitzer.
Yeah. And also, because you feel it in the movie when you're a fat person, it's not just the long shots, it's the extreme close-ups. Mm-hmm. So whenever they want to show a fold or they want to show an arm or a leg, they just shove it right into her.
So let's start with the positive things first, because there is this. The story starts out, I think, fairly nicely. It's an interview with Ivy, telling her story from booking the role as Gwyneth Paltrow's body double all the way up to current, and and she's been on a hell of a ride. It's not been great for the most part, but she has a great attitude. At the time, she was an aspiring actress living in Hollywood. She gets the casting call. She comes in, and basically she describes the whole process of working on this movie from the original casting call, which I think we had wondered what they actually even wrote in the casting call.
She didn't know.
She didn't know either.
Yeah.
She still does not know.
She
Still
heard about
doesn't.
it from a friend. They, showed up. They took pictures. She met
Yeah.
with the directors.
And so she describes experience as being quite positive, like pretty much across the board. Like everyone was very respectful to her. They appreciated her skills as an actress. Gwyneth Paltrow was very complimentary about her acting technique. Jack Black was like the nicest person in the world. The director, like the crew members were very respectful of her and treated her like a valued person amongst the cast as anyone else. So she had nothing negative to say about that. And the unfortunate thing that happens is when you make a movie like this, the movie gets released and then the general public sees it.
Yeah.
And then you have press, and they actually did have her going out and doing some interviews, which I was kind of surprised to hear. I thought they would have only had like the named stars doing that, but they had her also doing some interviews, and she got to feel and see and experience firsthand the vitriol that comes from the public who doesn't want to see you as a happy fat person. And in fact, I think this is the first thing that sparked all of this was that she said in an interview, being fat isn't the worst thing in the world, which isn't even that strong of a statement.
Yeah.
But that had to be corrected by the general populace immediately.
So
it is
she
the
was
worst thing in the world.
She was getting hate mail. People found her address and were sending her stuff. She was also getting kind of creepy, like seductive advances. Like somebody composed a symphony and sent it to her as a
So
way of
I
trying
have to say, I
Well,
have very
by the way,
mixed feelings
if I might interrupt, sorry, but just to put it in there because it goes right here, and also from the fat positive community about like, how dare you, how dare you, how dare you,
say that.
how dare you be in this movie, how dare you exist in this movie?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that you're doing
exactly.
damage to our cause. Then like, so it basically it's like everybody says you suck, even the people who are supposed to be
Yeah.
on your side.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have very mixed feelings about the symphony thing because
That's such a
it is,
cheeser thing.
it is, yeah. It's like
What's the symphony thing?
Someone wrote a symphony and sent it to her for her. It was like an ode
and
to
that's
her
such
body.
a like there's a lot there, and I think I in some ways I get the like earnestness of that, but it's also like, wow, someone to compose an entire symphony and not get at any point like, this is creepy.
You know what though? I will go on record as saying I would very much prefer a symphony to an unsolicited dick pic.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So anyway, that's not actually the whole. Like,
Yeah.
What happens is that she gets a lap band surgery, and after I can't remember how long it took. I think it was just a couple months. What's the term? It like broke.
She had torsion.
Yeah.
Yeah, torsion. So it twists and basically becomes incredibly painful. I think, it literally twists up in your insides.
Right. So she's already got an eating disorder based around, minimizing calorie counting and controlling your intake and blah, 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 going into this. And now she gets to a point where, as she puts it, like the good fatty is supposed to get the surgery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the concept of the good fatty is the fat person who only eats salads and goes to the gym even though they're fat and like tries really hard to not be fat. And so good for you, fatty. And so she was like, well, this is what we're supposed to do. This will make me happy. I'll live past 40 because that's what the doctor said I would die if I didn't do this. And so she does. It goes terribly wrong. And she can't eat or drink anything more viscous than water. Like that is the extent of what at this point. And she was so
What will pass through, yeah.
This freaked me out. She said she was so gaunt at this point in her life, having to deal with all of this stuff, that you could see her teeth through her cheek.
Yeah.
I think maybe she just meant the
That's
outline,
terrifying.
like not actually translucency, but still, like holy shit.
And I'm sure there were people saying like, wow, you've never looked better.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
no, that's
Yeah.
the
Good
thing.
for
Like,
you.
Yeah.
Like during this time, people are being so nice to her. She says it was like I went from nobody looking me in the eye when I was fat to people buying my drinks at a coffee shop for me and holding the door and blah 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 and just treating me so well.
she's dying.
And she's literally dying. Like they had to put her on IV, not sustenance, but IV
Drip.
They had
like the
nourishment. Like they
IV
had
drip,
to feed. They had to feed her via IV to get her to a place of healthiness and resilience, so that they could perform the surgery to save her.
To fix
Like
the surgery.
To fix the original surgery, right?
Yeah.
And even to this day, she still has to eat these like crazy small portions, and she has this. So anyway, she has an amazing attitude about this whole journey. She, her whole thing, and the reason why she loved Shallow Hal in the first place was because she has a great sense of humor, and all of the jokes of the movie, like them or not, are the kind of jokes she would tell, and so. She kind of takes this attitude, and so when she sort of left Hollywood and moved back home and was trying to forget about that whole experience, and throughout her life, she moves on to writing, and she has a comedy partner, and now she has a husband and kid. Like, her ability to kind of thrive in spite of everything that's happened, like, this could easily have been, like, Body Double from Shallow Hal dies.
I want to talk about what you said there about this was humor that was her sense of humor. And that was something in this article that really landed for me.
Yes.
In that, like, when you're fat, one of the defense mechanisms that I think is very common is a self-deprecating sense of humor, where you make yourself the butt of the joke, right? And that opens you up to being open to this sort of humor, which is not, no judgments there. But when that sense of humor is no longer in your control and gets sent out into the world, and suddenly the jokes you're telling about yourself are things people are saying about you that they are not joking when they say them,
Yeah.
that is way more damaging to you than if you had started in a neutral position.
Well,
Like,
and
it's a problem.
it kind of so I think the humor is important because it sort of takes away her own ability to control how she relates to fatness, where if she wants to make a joke about it and that helps her feel good about it and helps her kind of laugh about, this is life, blah blah blah, and makes the people around her laugh, that's a kind of power she can take for herself. But when other people say, no, you don't get to feel good about any of this, you should feel bad about all of this, suddenly you can't make those jokes anymore. It doesn't, like, your whole relationship to it has changed because it now has to be a negative experience no matter what.
And I think there's a lot of where, if gay men make a joke about gay men among gay men, it's completely different than if a bunch of guys straight guys in a truck make a joke about gay men.
Yeah.
That lands very differently, even if it's the exact same joke.
Yeah.
All right, Trevor, I'm feeling a little dirty after this one. Is there something you've got here that can clean us up a bit?
Well,
That's a hell of a way to put it.
yeah.
I like feeling dirty, Don.
So Janelle Monäe has a new music video, Water
Yes.
Slide, which I think is like the
Amazing.
perfect antidote to the Rush music video from
Yeah.
we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, the
And
twink video.
Yeah. And just like so different in so many ways that it actually feels like it is the opposite. I think even
It's
just
the
in
antidote.
the like
It really is like. So Janelle Monäe, in case you don't know, she's a recording artist, singer. Also was in a starring role in Glass Onion. If you saw that over the wintertime.
that's
I
right.
thought she killed it. I thought
She
did
was
a great
amazing.
job
She
in
was
it.
great. She had a dual role to play. So clearly very talented. So this video is kind of like a summer vibes, like vintage feel, like sort of shot on 16 millimeter film, and it's just this big old dance party in her yard with a pool and a water slide. The video's called Water Slide, and
And by the
there
way,
are-
when they say water slide, they mean the slip and slide. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
it's
like
on the
literally,
lawn
like
with a hose.
not a pool style water slide. Literally, just the thing that you had when you were a kid that you went running and belly flopped and flew across the yard like that, and then inevitably you bumped over a rock on the way and it was painful. Yeah. No, but the thing is, the video has so many types of bodies in it. You have just it runs the gamut of everyone in their swimwear.
I actually
feeling
started making a
good.
game out of it, trying to figure out a body type I wasn't seeing, and
Yeah.
I failed.
It's just
Well-
the joy. Well, okay, Dan has a counterpoint. I
Yeah,
guess.
once again, absolutely no fat men. All the men are super.
No, Dexter was
Dexter's in
there.
it.
No,
Dexter's in it.
yeah.
Dan. You missed
Dexter,
him.
I saw him, but it's the kind of thing they're like, and only because we know Dexter so well. Like, I didn't see a
guess, yeah.
face. I didn't see a
It's
face.
short. He's in a few shots, but not a lot.
I think you could.
I
I think
thought I
if
saw
you added
Fat
all of
Man.
them up, you might get to 1 second.
There, yeah.
Okay.
He's in it. It is, Dan's right. It is cut very, very short. It's barely featured in the video. But like our friend of the podcast, Dexter.
I had to ask if, like, is that Dexter? Because I
It
know
is.
Dexter
You
pretty
can,
well.
I clocked him immediately, Dan.
Yeah.
Trust me on this. So that, yes, point well taken. Most of the men in the video are sort of straight-sized, not fat. But beyond that point, like the video starts with a shot of a bunch of women lying down, sunning themselves, and it's just like rolls and sensuality. And they're not all fat, but a lot of them are. And God, it is just such the anti-Rush video that if you watched Rush and you felt slimed, you will feel candied after watching this one, I would say.
Well, and I think also just like the rhythm, it is far more to me like summer pool party and like less manic energy. Which like Rush, it's
Rush is like a
the title is
cocaine
from
high.
Poppers.
Yeah,
like
Rush
it's-
felt like a drug thing, and like,
I mean,
Well, it is.
Rush is named for the brand of
Yeah.
Poppers, so it's like
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
makes sense.
but it felt that way. This felt like joy, you know.
This
Yeah.
is joyful. This is absolutely joyful. There is a shot of and we're focusing on the bodies because, of course, that's the tie-in to the podcast. But there's a shot in the middle of the video of a completely naked fat woman, kind of almost like who is the Renaissance era painter?
Rubin?
Like almost Rubenesque, like sort of her body draped with this giant hat on that she kind of bends, and it's just this like beautiful. It feels artistic. It just feels like a painting, in film, and the whole video has that vibe, but then it also is like fun and silly. I watched it. I just watched it this morning, and it was just a blast. I really, really love this video.
Oh, sorry, just an update for listeners, because I talked about this in another episode, and then I think I was supposed to talk about it last week. I ended up not being able to go to the pool party, the fat pool party, because I had really bad vertigo that weekend.
No.
Wow.
And I did not want to be toppling over a bunch of
Make your own slip and slide.
fat women, and I also was having some really bad nausea, so that was a bad mix for
No.
a pool party. So I missed it, but I saw pictures. It was fun. But yeah,
I'm sorry you
I
had to
know
miss
that little update.
Anyway, so check out the video and support Janelle Monäe, because this is a fantastic project and really, I think, the more deserving summer hit.
Yeah.
All right, let's hurtle on into
That Watch 2023.
Scooty.
One day I'm
It's
just going
time.
to change the music for this and not tell you guys. It's going to be like a plane flying, like
It's coming this way.
everybody get down.
Oh my God, it's
going.
Brick Ocean.
We're going back up. We're feeling
wow.
good. We're in Baltimore, baby. The Baltimore
that's
Sun
right.
has a piece highlighting
Yeah.
a community group that is rejecting diet culture and embracing body positivity.
I'll put this out there before we get too far into it. There is an exact copy of this article in a free publication as well, if we want to share that link.
Yeah,
Okay.
the link you sent us was behind a paywall.
But
I didn't realize
Archimex,
that.
I can share that. Archimex has the exact same article.
Okay.
Anyway, what are we talking about specifically in Baltimore?
No, so this is a highlight of Body Liberation Baltimore, which is a community organization run through a Facebook group, but they also do some in-person events, and it is basically just a virtual support space for people who have been harmed by anti-fat bias. And it's just talking about the founders and also some other groups. I just wanted to, I found this out from a listener, Mycroft, who is a huge supporter of the podcast. And Mycroft and their partner are featured in the article,
Yeah.
as well as their group, DMV Fat Positive Community. And I love, seeing this piece kind of talking about people creating community. And in the article, they talk about how, NAFA used to have local chapters and that they don't anymore. But as a result of kind of that loss, there has been all this growth of people making groups like this.
One of the things I really appreciated about this was that they have 2 monthly support calls, one of which is for anybody, all takers, anybody who wants to show up and have community, and then the other is specifically for fat people, so that if you want to go to both, you can go to both if you're fat, but it kind of gives you your own space, and it gives you an inclusive space so that you can kind of have everybody gets their own breathing room, and you don't feel like toes are being stepped on, or like you're walking into a call that you're not necessarily, like, for somebody like me might feel a little uncomfortable joining just the singular call if it's like, well, this is the one for fat people. But if you have one that's dedicated, like this is for everybody, then this
Yeah.
one's for us. Like that feels really smart to me.
And I think it also bridges the controversy of like, no, we need a safe space for just us, and no, we don't want to isolate ourselves and be part of nobody.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, and body diversity means diversity, right? You have to bring everyone in for you to be able to celebrate body diversity. So,
Well, I mean, that's the I guess the counterpoint to that is like, straight sized people have space everywhere, whereas fat people need a dedicated space. That's what we're creating. So like, you want a dedicated space for fat people to be safe and to be able to talk, but you also want the inclusivity of allies. So I think that's where the two calls come from. Anyway, I like how this is being run and how supportive they seem to be for each other in this community that they're creating. It's just really, it's kind of like what we've talked about this whole time, which is like really the best way to deal with all of these issues, because they're not going to get solved overnight. They may never get solved, is to create a community, a place for you to be around like-minded people where you can support each other, where, you know, if you get slimed out in the world, you can come and sort of detox and like feel healed.
And I also think that is so necessary for chasers and fat admirers, because a lot of the misbehavior you see among us in our community is simply because, like, I was talking to a chaser, and he has all these toxic ideas that I'm trying to well, you know, you might want to think about exactly how that plays out, you know, because that's not really good. And I realized, oh my God, he has no fat friends.
Yeah.
Fat people are just people he has sex with. He has no fat friends. And if he did, he'd be able to he'd be like, no, dude, that's gross. And whether he's straight or gay, it doesn't matter. It's just
To his own ideas and behaviors, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so he doesn't get. There are a lot of people who are sexually attracted to fat people, but have no community with fat people, and that is so. It's toxic on both sides.
Well,
because it increases the shame for the chaser, and it increases the predatory nature of the romance.
Yeah.
I think if a lot of these guys had fat friends and just had like fat community, they would actually be capable of dating.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not a friend with someone, you kind of I feel like a lot of people who are not friends with a group just tend to objectify them because they have there's no other way to do it, right?
Well,
you don't know what they are.
And everything lives in your head. Like everything is just your own experience and perception of the other, and they're other at that point. And you get to choose when you engage with them and how you want to engage with them, and it's very targeted.
I feel it must become something like the straight incel guy who has no communication with women.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, who then, like, every interaction with a woman, it tends to pattern more after what they've learned to expect from interactions from porn. And that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I feel I've had a couple interactions with chasers where I'm like, I think that might be what happened. Like, they've watched a lot of porns, and there's a script in their head as how I'm supposed to behave.
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
I would like to highlight for a brief moment that Don just used the word porns plural with an
as
S.
a countable noun. No, but and I recognize
That was what I
that.
got from that.
But I also think, because a lot of chasers would say, well, you know, I'm too sexually attracted to have them as friends. Which, okay, examine that. But
So there are no fat guys you find unattractive?
right. Well, but that's what I'm saying is that, you know, let's say you're a straight fat admirer and your only interaction with fat women is trying to pick them up. You know, a good first step would be having fat male friends.
Yeah.
You know, or if you're a chubby
call.
chaser, if you're a gay chubby chaser, a first step might be having fat female friends. Like, because in that way that it takes the sexuality out of it for you, and you can still understand fat community, you can still understand and relate to what is it like for fat people, instead of you just saying like, well, the problem that a lot of chasers have is that their only experience of being fat isn't that hot.
Yeah.
And that's
Does this mean we need to start like a big brother, big sister program where we pair, you know, chubs and BBWs with straight and gay chasers and just kind of
I
like...
think that might have something to
Well, it could just be an extension of our program where we're trying to get chasers to mentor other chasers.
That is, trust me from experience, that is really hard because they're like, no, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to the fat guy.
Why would I talk to you? You're not hot.
Or the only reason to talk to me is like, do you know any fat guys? What's the biggest guy you've ever been with? You know, I'm so sick of that conversation.
Yeah, that's useless.
Speaking of standout chasers, we have a particular listener who has truly gone above and beyond. And I think, Don, you have the inside track on this, so why don't you talk about our friend Jeff?
Yeah, just wanted to send a shout out to our one of our listeners who has been working very hard in Hawaii to help try and rescue people in Lahaina in Maui, where they just had those massive fires.
Which is where the person lives.
Yeah, we just wanted to send a shout out. He sent a photo of himself in firefighter gear as he's going around trying to find, I forget what they're called, flare-ups. He's like going to areas where they've already extinguished the fire, but they're still smoldering. And he's trying to put out the little smoldering spots before they light up again and start a new fire. And by the way, to all of our listeners, both Chubb and Chaser, there is no better personal ad photo you could possibly put than an incredibly hot fireman photo. I'm just saying.
Assuming you are the fireman.
Dear listener, that's a photo you should be putting on your profile. That's all I'm saying.
Well, between that and then, last week we were talking about the hurricane coming into LA, which thankfully...
Which led to our very first hurryquake in Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah.
Where we had an earthquake hit us during the hurricane.
Oh, minor. Both were minor.
Yeah.
Leave that part out.
Yeah.
I just want to say the word hurryquake.
Like a lot of things in LA, both were overhyped.
Yeah. And it also hit where I'm at, too, in the greater Vegas area. Granted, much more inland, and we didn't get the earthquake part of it. We got the remnants of the hurricane. So, but we wanted to talk to bring all of this together.
Yes.
We wanted to talk
you.
about disaster preparedness, and specifically, Don had mentioned, I think, an NPR story that you had heard about a fellow who was escaping a disaster.
There is an article from NPR. It's a radio interview with a survivor from Lahaina, who talks about from the moment. He realized that there was no warning coming and that his town was on fire and that houses, like 2 houses down, were already in flames, right? So it talks about him, his fat neighbor who they get on their scooter together and they're trying to go through the city.
He's also fat, is the point.
The neighbor in the story is fat. He is not.
Oh, I thought the main... Okay, got it.
No, but one of the stories he tells about is driving through the street of Lahaina, hearing the screams out in the fire, and then coming to a parking lot, and there's a bunch of people that are trying to figure out how to get out, and there's a fat man trapped in the parking lot with no transportation, and the 2 of them on their scooter couldn't take him. And the act of having to leave this person behind and not knowing what happened to them because they physically weren't able to bring him along started making me think about, I have lots of concerns about my own safety during emergency situations. So
I just want to drop in here, lest we get cards and letters. It is completely possible that a thin person could also get left behind because there wasn't room on the scooter.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
So I just to put that in.
But this is something that comes home to me. Is I have actually thought in the past, if there's a car and a group of us need to get away, will 2 people escape if I stay behind?
Right.
That is
exactly.
something that has crossed my mind.
Yeah.
But it has occurred to me in the past, what safety concerns do I need to address in my own life to try and make sure that I'm safe in an emergency situation when I don't think people can care for me? I live in a 2-story walk-up, right? If I have a heart attack or something, can they get me down the stairs? That's something that worries me. So today we thought we might talk about some of the precautions, some of the things and the concerns that larger people may face during these larger disaster situations. And what can we do to try and maximize our own chances in any of these hope they do not happen situations?
Yeah. I'll just, by the way, before we dive in, I'll echo so my partner Michael I think he's a bit of a catastrophist already, a bit, tiny bit, just little bit. He's always saying we've got to stock up for this, we got to make sure this, and blah blah blah, and we got to be prepared in case something goes horribly wrong, even when there is no impending disaster. And I kind of make fun of him for it because it's a little extreme. But now that we're having this conversation, I'm starting to realize, if something were to actually happen, we went through this hurricane and it was fine for us, but it may not have been. That's a very different look for him than it would be for me in that situation.
Yeah.
That's a very different type of fear. And so I'm starting to kind of get it now on a real level.
Yeah, and Trevor is a professional catastrophist, and so definitely wins awards. And yeah, But my thing is I'm glad you're worrying about that because it would never occur to me.
Yeah, Dan and I have very different approaches, and we kind of balance each other out. With the hurricane we've recently, experienced, I was actually pretty sure that I thought it was going to be kind of the rains we had earlier this year that were just, severe. There was flooding earlier this year. And my concern was okay, if we lose power, I want to make sure I have some kind of backup thing for my CPAP, which I actually did purchase ahead of this hurricane. I'm still actually. I was like, after I got it, I was trying to figure out the math of like, how long will this last with my CPAP?
Mm-hmm. I will say, just to that point, there are battery backups, and I have this for my work setup. I think it's the shorthand is a UPC battery backup.
Yeah.
It's like so it charges, it stays charged. You run everything through it like a surge protector, and then if the power goes out, it has its own power source for a while. And mine gives me an estimate. Like on the readout, it says, given the draw that you're currently putting this under, it can provide these many hours of power.
Yeah, and the particular battery that Trevor bought, it was great. It's very compact. It's very sleek. You charge it, obviously, but you can also use your car to charge it because it's designed for camping. So it assumes that you might be away for several days, so you can use your car and the combustion engine there to charge it.
I feel like that's probably the number one most immediate and probably consistent concern would be like, how do I run my CPAP?
Yeah.
Well, we were trapped in that situation, and we had to go to a hotel, even though there was nothing wrong with our house. We just didn't have power, and it was either Trevor doesn't sleep that night, or we go to a hotel that had its own backup generator. That's what chose the hotel for us.
That's
So something else I looked up because we were talking about this as an episode topic, and I was just looking and thinking about like, okay, real disaster, like big disaster, what does this look like? And I was thinking about, like emergency shelters, and I was thinking of cots, and like, what is the weight capacity of one of those
Cots.
Cots they set up?
Or how big are they? Would you even fit on it?
Well, it's like, I don't know if I would fit on it, and I looked up, and it's like either 450 or 500 is the kind of like standard.
That's the new amount. That has been decided upon after Katrina, because when Katrina hit in New Orleans, which is a town that has a fairly large population, I mean physically large, not just numerically, that was a serious issue afterwards. And so when I was prepping for this, I went out and I tried to find out if there was any research on large, on disaster relief with obesity factors included. I found a paper published in 2016 that simply went into the fact that no research had been done on it.
A research paper about the lack of research.
Of the research paper. And the only thing that research paper could dip into as far as of any sort of information was anecdotal, relying heavily on Katrina and Sandy stories.
These are hurricanes for the non-Americans.
Yeah, for the non-Americans. Katrina was something that hit during New Orleans during the 90s. No, the early 2000s.
No.
I think actually Katrina was large enough to where I feel like our international listeners probably know about it.
It's possible. I just wanted to make it
but,
clear.
One of the things that article went into was that there is a fair amount of anecdotal stories coming out of Katrina dealing with fat patients, fat disaster relief people. Stories about people being left behind because they didn't have a way to carry them down the stairs of the hospital when they had to evacuate. Also some heroic stories of people hauling down people like 10 stories of stairs with all of the equipment needed to keep them alive at the moment. I want to make sure that those make it in there too. But Katrina showed so many problems with like a triage, right? Fatness was considered one of the factors on whether or not you would consider a person would leave a decent standard of life afterwards. So if they were fat, that was a factor on whether or not you decided to they were worthy of the resources to keep them alive when resources were limited.
A negative factor.
Negative factor.
It would prevent you from getting the treatment. Yeah.
And it's strange because, if you're talking about evacuating a hospital, I don't think they go, well, we're going to leave the ICU people behind. Like that's that's not how that works. So it's very definitely about prejudice and oppression.
But even just on some very standard low-level stuff, on day-to-day stuff, non-disaster, Heimlich maneuver, right?
Yeah.
If a fat person is choking, a lot of chasers are going to kind of freeze up and not know what to do. But that's something that all of us can learn, right? CPR on a fat person is slightly different and slightly harder.
So one of the things my partner Michael has talked about, because he's has a very a corporate job, he's a financial analyst, and so he up to 2020 worked in an office building, and his company that he worked for had been building a new office building. The first one was sort of this big, sprawling, single, I think maybe 2-story building. The second one was a almost like kind of a high rise, a mini high rise in downtown, the city that he was in. And the story that he was on was like eighth or ninth floor. And he was thinking, like, I can take the elevator up, but what if the power, even just something simple like the power goes out in the building and we have to evacuate? Am I expected to walk, and he's got, a couple medical issues that makes it more difficult to like go up and down large amounts of stairs. Like this starts to become a concern, like for him, like the going back to work in an office versus working from home, there's like this added degree of consideration to it, which is like, I don't want to have to worry about that type of risk. I know that I'm safer here at home where I'm not going to get stuck on the 8th floor of a building that needs to be evacuated.
Yeah. Or high rises, 28th floor, 38th floor,
Yeah.
48th floor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I remember lots of stories from evacuations of high risers where certain problems had not been taken into consideration, like people in wheelchairs and stuff like that.
Yeah. There's a different view. There's a different consideration of, a fat person going down the stairs and people banding together to get hold of either side of a thin
Carry.
person's wheelchair.
Yeah.
It's a very different, just a different psychological situation for both the fat person and the people helping.
I keep coming back to, I know this is a weird example to use when you're talking about real life, but I keep coming back to horror movies where if a group of people is running, people will stop to help the disabled person escape. The fat person is on their own.
Oh yeah, in fact, that's the joke, right? The fat
Yep.
person gets eaten by the monster. Yeah.
Yep. So I went through a couple different lists and I tried to pick out some advice for our larger listeners on preparedness, which was fun to do because I didn't find any suggestions on lists on what to do for larger people. So this is sort of a Frankenstein-y thing that I've thrown together at the last minute. So things to do, go bags, right? It's a good idea to have a bag with the basic stuff you need for life for a couple days at the very least, along with, some like emergency rations, some water, and very important, at least a couple weeks supply of any medications you must have.
Yeah, that's a
Right?
big one.
Which is tough given how insurance companies are so stingy about giving
for
you.
Yes, you're going to have to pay out of pocket. It's just, you don't have any choice.
Well, and renew
For
them, 'cause you
the
have to.
medication thing, I noticed our insurance company, like 2 days after the storm, released, like they got their thing together. Like, okay, well now we'll cover emergency medication.
Oh, that's
if you're in
wonderful.
affected
No,
areas.
but after the event,
Yeah,
not before.
and then it always tends to be that because they did the same thing with the storms this winter. Something I will say about the go bag thing for fat people is make sure to have clothes because
Yep.
you're probably not going to be able to get clothes wherever you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to borrow
Emergency
some stranger's jeans.
shelters are not going to have emergency supplies.
Also, they have portable bidets that are squeeze, and I would advise including that in your go bag because you're gonna have to go, baby.
So like a squeeze bottle that
Okay.
works as a bidet. Yeah, that's nice.
Okay, so go bags with all that stuff in it. In advance, know which hospitals can help you, right? So, if, for example, for me, I live in Los Angeles. The closest hospital to me is not highly recommended for fat people. I need to go. I want to go to Cedars if possible. Know that in
Okay.
advance.
Oh, just know
leave-
where you're going.
Leave clear instructions on anything that might happen to you, like if you have a medical condition or any of that sort of stuff. Contact information. Keep it written down on your person. And here's something to do in advance. Basically, a mobility escape checklist for you in advance.
Yes.
So, like, for me, that's something that I need to do with my concern about people being able to get me down the stairs. I need to make sure that everything that could help someone do that is available in my apartment and my roommate knows about it, right?
Yeah.
So all of these are things that are designed to try and help you move with the most efficiency when you have no time to do it.
I also want to piggyback on that last thing you said, Don, because that's so great. There's a lot of stuff that fat people do just on a daily, ordinary basis to aid their own mobility, little tips and tricks that work for your own body. But if you're in pain or unconscious, no one else is going to know that. And so there's there can be a certain amount of shame in like, well, this is actually how I do that. But it's necessary in an emergency. I mean, like with Trevor and me, it's easy because I know exactly, I think I know all those tips and tricks.
Yeah.
And have been there when they got invented. But but for a roommate, maybe not. And for EMS workers, definitely not. And so to take the time to somehow make that available if you are in too much pain to think about it or are literally unconscious.
I would say, to kind of piggyback off this and what you said, Don, while this may be uncomfortable, so I've done a lot of work with NAFA's death planning project, and making sure that the people in your life know how much you weigh, or at least like a ballpark figure if you don't want to give them the exact amount.
Yeah.
Because thin people are terrible at assessing someone's weight.
Oh my God!
Because it will be either like, okay, well, they're like, he must be 250, or like, well, he's 800 pounds, obviously. Like, because that will be important for, like, whatever kind of medical assistance you're getting. Anesthesia,
medicine.
But for, like, even the ambulance or, that'll be something they ask. Just another random tip that is something that we did that I thought, actually, we need to, Dan, update since we've had some people move. I created an online spreadsheet for us and our neighbors and our management company with us to give our neighbors emergency contacts. Because, like, if there was, the big one and our, this end of the building just collapsed and smushed us, our neighbors wouldn't know how to get a hold of anyone in our lives.
Yeah.
That's classic LA.
And it's just
or any big city.
Yeah. I think it really just depends on where you are. But, like, or like if something happened to, any of our neighbors, like, I wouldn't know really what to do. But we created the spreadsheet as an easy way to share and update emergency contacts.
Yeah. So listeners, if you have any things that you've thought of or ways to gather this kind of information that we hadn't touched on, let us know and we'll share it in our next episode in a mailbag.
Yeah.
Today, did we have a tip? I forget. Is there a tip?
No, I mean, the whole
whole episode is our tip.
It was all tips. All right, Don.
So
take
for
us
our
into
bit
Bitland.
today, since we've gone to some places today where we feel very unsafe, the question that I have for everyone today is, what is a place that makes you feel safe, comfortable, secure, or what is a thing that makes you feel that way? Give us your safe place.
And invite listeners to join
Invite us
in
all
our
to your
safe place. Yeah.
Dan, do you have one for us?
I do. Okay.
Oh, let's hear it.
So when I was a little boy, we would go and we would stay at my grandparents', and my mother would be in like the guest bedroom, and I would be in their office, which also had a day bed because I was small enough to fit in a day bed. And this office was right up against the furnace. Like there's there's a little tiny hallway. Anyway, you get it. There, on the other side of the wall from the daybed was the furnace, and I would have such comfort hearing the furnace turn on.
Oh,
And the heat go in the middle of the night. Like that was just so comforting because it was warm, and the white noise from the furnace, and it was just so amazing.
That's really sweet.
To the point where I would get disappointed when it would turn off.
Yeah. I know exactly. So can I go next? Are you done?
Yes.
Because so mine ties into that almost perfectly, where it starts with my grandparents' house. I would stay with them. It was classic, like mid-century house, like in a suburb. And I would stay in the office, which doubled as a guest room for the grandchildren, where they would have like a little cot set up. And I would lie in there, and it was so quiet. And then I would hear the central air click on.
Really?
And it was just this kind of...
Yes.
Like it was just this comforting sound, and I loved the feel of the breeze going over my face and the sheets. Like it was so quiet and cool. And that feeling has stuck with me. I would get the same thing on our family beach trips, where we'd go to these big fancy beach houses. Clearly this is an AC deficiency in my childhood, like at home. Like we didn't run it cold enough for me. So all of that building up to where's my safe place, where I live now is kind of a culmination of all of those little factors. It's we have central air here. It's cool. It's quiet. It's peaceful. There are all of these like great napping spots. We have this like 7-foot beanbag chair. We have a great big bed. All of these like little like patches of sunlight, and you get the sunset like raking through the house. This is the greatest napping house I have ever lived in.
I'm beginning to suspect that Michael is half cat.
I got that
It's entirely
exact same
possible.
sensation. Yeah.
It is so. I mean, I take a
Well,
nap.
he lives with the creatures,
most
for Christ's
days.
sake.
Trevor.
I will spare everyone the ooey gooey, like, Dan. But no, I was thinking of, so when I was a kid, I had a 101 Dalmatian blanket that
So did
got
we.
so, like, worn and pilled and gross. But so that, like, being under that blanket, and then we had a beagle named Murphy, and Murphy would sleep with me, and she would do this thing where she would, like, put her mouth over my hand, like, kind of like bite down on my hand a little through the blanket, and just kind of like, not chew on my hand, but just kind of be like, up.
Yeah. Now,
It's sort of the
And-
doggy equivalent to holding hands.
Yeah. And like, so being like asleep, curled up under that blanket with Murphy's mouth on my hand through the blanket. And then actually, long story, but we had to get rid of Murphy at one point because she had a canine epilepsy. And we had a friend who kind of specialized with beagles and everything. But I gave that blanket to her when she went to go live with our family friend.
That's really
very sad.
sweet. I guess mine is the only one that doesn't involve sleep. I was a big reader when I was a kid. So my reading spot was always my favorite one, but I had a weird reading spot. I lived on a small plot of property in upstate New York, and we were surrounded by trees, very tall trees. And we had a pine tree that I really liked being able to climb up to the top of. So
Oh, wow.
I'd be reading like 30 or 40 feet up in the air.
Oh, my gosh.
With an amazing view. Like, nobody could come to that tree without me seeing them, right? Like, I was safe up there.
yeah.
It sounds ridiculously dangerous. Probably was.
Yeah.
But,
That
I
is
gotta
like
say,
the least
I was
safe spot.
but I was very aware. Like, if you fell from my spot up top, like, you would fall a few feet, hit a branch, a few feet, hitting a branch. Like, it wouldn't be that bad.
Just to really make sure that all of your bones broke.
Exactly.
It's kind of like a parachute that's arboreal.
We had randomly. I grew up in Virginia, but we had a northwestern pine in our backyard. It's the only one in the whole city, but we just had this random pine tree.
That's great.
Some bird carried that seed all the way across the country.
That's fun. So,
Can I also say there's something very comforting about a fat kid up on a tree reading? That's just,
Yeah,
I like that.
You know, I will say, Don, to your point, I did actually used to like sitting out on our roof. So it's dangerous.
it's
safe
very
spots.
peaceful. And it's also very cool because there's always air moving.
Yeah, that's true.
So, dear listener, tell us about your safe space. Trevor, where could they do so?
Well, baby, 150. We're on Instagram and Twitter as @BigFatGayPod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. Thank us for 150 episodes there. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/BigFatGayPod. See the articles we talked about at BigFatGayPod.com.
Yeah, it's pretty basically right.
Yeah. is that right? I was BigFatGayPod.com?
I think I heard something like big fig at bigpod.com.
Big fig pod. Maybe you are you're up a tree with the AC going and you hear the furnace and you're under a blanket and a dog has your
That's
hand
all
in
of
its
them.
mouth. You're the safest of safe, baby. But
So-
not because we're coming for you.
So watch out. See, I was going to take it a different direction. I was going to say, oh, no need to watch out this time because you're safe. But
No, and you always gotta watch.
Always watch out.
always be on your toes.